Ok. Olá, pessoal. Boa noite. Bem-vindos à abertura do Esquenta do Product Camp. A gente está muito feliz aqui em começar em muito, mas muito, muito grande estilo com o Marty Cagan. E eu estou acompanhado aqui também pelo PH, pelo Paulo Santos, que a gente vai fazer uma rápida abertura. O Marty já está aqui com a gente. A gente vai fazer uma rápida abertura e logo, logo a gente vai começar a fazer perguntas para ele. Então, galera, mandem suas perguntas. Vou deixar aqui projetado na tela também aqui embaixo o link para vocês fazerem as perguntas. Fechou? Paulo, tá contigo, meu brother. Se apresente aí.
Show de bola. Bom, prazer, pessoal, aí, para quem ainda não tinha me visto aí nas lives da Product Camp, né? Meu nome é Paulo Henrique, eu sou o PH aí, conhecido aí como PH, né? Na verdade, não sou tão conhecido ainda como nosso amigo Farinasa. E, como ele disse, né? A gente está muito feliz mesmo. Estamos muito felizes, começando com chave de ouro aí, esse caminho, esse esquenta que a gente vai trilhar até o start aí do Product Camp. Na verdade, já começou, né? Então, eu queria fazer só uma abertura aqui para vocês de como vai ser, do que é esse esquenta aí. E para quem ainda não conhece, para quem ainda não sabe, se você chegou aí nesse link aí meio perdido, pode ser que aconteça. Em 2019, nós fizemos aí o maior evento de produto da América Latina, né, com mais de 1.400 pessoas ali em São Paulo. E se você quiser ver aí os highlights dessa edição, as fotos, como é que foi, né? Nós temos alguns depoimentos também, tudo aí no YouTube. Dá uma olhada nisso aí, dá uma olhada no nosso site, lá tem muita coisa interessante para você ver como é que foi, para você sentir um pouquinho de como foi massa, como foi fera aí. Eu devo estar aqui no meio dessa galera aí, em algum lugar. Ano passado, né, nós tivemos aqui Melissa Perry, Andy Young, Natália Arsan, Spengler, enfim, nós tivemos vários keynotes muito massas aí, muito legais, e pô, os depoimentos foram excelentes. Então dá uma olhada lá, de novo, né, entra no site, dá uma olhada, ver como é que foi, dá uma olhada nas fotos, dá uma olhada nos vídeos, para você sentir um pouquinho. E o que vem por aí, né? Em 2020, a gente não poderíamos deixar a comunidade de produto assim se dispersar. Então, esse ano nós temos esse tema, né? Even Stronger. E, pô, se a gente fizer aí uma trilha do que foi desde 2016, lá com o início da ideia, até agora 2020, sendo que em 2019 nós tivemos 1.400 pessoas, em 2020 nós estamos deixando a meta aberta aí, quando a gente atingir a meta, a gente dobra a meta. Mas a gente está esperando um bocado de gente e assim, as inscrições estão a todo vapor, tá? E como é que vai acontecer? Do dia 30 de novembro até o dia 10 de dezembro vai estar rolando aí, vão ser 2 semanas, tá? Então, totalmente diferente o Product Camp esse ano. 28 talks, 12 painéis, 4 keynotes e assim, 24 horas de evento. Então, se você ainda não comprou seu ingresso, corre lá no site, dá uma olhada lá, porque já tem um lote acabando, assim, o lote 1 já está realmente acabando. Então, alguns dos keynotes que nós temos para esse ano, a Cax do Som, da Devinta, o John Cutler, que é um cara também excelente assim, de produto, e mais 2 keynotes que ainda estão para ser confirmados, e mais uma galera que anda com a gente, né? A galera da OLX, Microsoft, PicPay, Nubank, SharePay, então, Sherpa, né? Na verdade, que é do SharePay, e uma galera muito grande aí de todas as maiores empresas de produto do Brasil vão estar conosco, então dá uma olhada lá, com certeza é o maior evento, com o maior conteúdo de produto que nós temos aqui no Brasil atualmente. E aí, a modalidade única, tudo isso aqui já foi passado pelo Marcelo e pelo Farina lá no início, mas acessa todo o conteúdo do evento, perguntas para palestrante, chat, networking para você fazer durante o evento, acesso à gravação de todo o conteúdo por um ano, tudo isso você vai ter, né, nessa modalidade única de evento. E o lote 1 já está quase acabando, né? A gente já tivemos aí 2 lotes, Early Bird ali, e esse lote 1 já está acabando, então corre lá, que ainda tem um preço interessante para você comprar. Então, falando um pouco desse esquenta, né, desse evento que está rolando hoje, que vai começar hoje, a gente vai seguir com ele até o início da Product Camp, até a última sexta-feira antes do Product Camp. Como é que vai rolar esses meetups, né, públicos, e aí totalmente 0800 para você. Todas as terças e quintas nós vamos ter meetup para você aí. Você pode colocar aí no lembrete, assim que a gente estiver lançando, sempre vai ter aí às 19 horas. Os próximos já estão confirmados e já está tudo certo para a gente iniciar, tá? Então, basicamente, são todos os avisos que a gente vai sempre estar dando aqui. Entre em contato com a gente se você sentir necessidade, no contato@Product Camp, acha a gente no Facebook, acha a gente no Instagram e acha a gente no LinkedIn e pelo nosso site também, tá? A gente vê vocês por lá. E só um hands up aí antes da gente iniciar aqui com o Sir Marty Cagan, the man of the hour. We have aqui, nós temos aqui, já estou começando a falar inglês já. Nós temos aqui um cupom de 10% de desconto para Product Camp, para os cursos da PM3. Se você ainda não fez, se você ainda não conhece, cara, vai lá. Eu já fiz o de Product Management, eu estou fazendo o de Product Discovery, é muito bom. Então, a gente tem esse desconto aí de 10% com esse cupom aí, Pcamp 2020. Só colocar lá na hora que você for comprar no carrinho e tá dado aí o desconto. Então, Farina, let's go. Let's talk with the man.
Tamo aí, pessoal. O meetup vai ser in English. So Marty Cagan, of course, can join us. Just a few words in Portuguese, Marty. A few more, the last ones. A gente vai, obviamente, por ser no YouTube, ele fica gravado para sempre. Mas o que provavelmente vai acontecer é que a gente vai dar uma segurada depois que acabar a live. Talvez a gente dê uma segurada para legendar, talvez não, enfim. Inclusive, se alguém quiser se voluntariar para legendar, a gente tá... Nem falei com o Marcel, nem com o PH, não, mas se alguém quiser se voluntariar, estamos aí. Algum vizinho aqui decidiu que vai buzinar eternamente, desculpa. Eu vou continuar mutando meu microfone para não morrer de calor aqui. So, Marty, it's really, really great to have you here. We're very happy to have you here. It's been a tough year for everyone, we believe, of course, but we're trying to get it to end this year a little better than it started, because it started in March, right? And so we're trying to end it a little better than it started, with a lot of great content and a lot of great people talking about product management. Very good to have you here. Feel free to present yourself, maybe, but to speak a few opening words if you want.
Well, thanks for inviting me, for sure. And I do wish it could be in person. Of course, I'm looking forward to getting back to Brazil. And yeah, for those that don't know me, I've been doing product for my whole career since university, and always on tech-powered products. I've never worked on a non-technology product before. Always tech products. And started my career with 10 years as an engineer. And then I learned product, and I've been interested really in product teams for the whole time. Product designers, product managers, engineers, and how they solve hard problems. And I guess what I'm most interested in for my whole career has been the difference between how the best companies work and how most companies work. And I want to try to help more companies work like the best companies.
Great, that's awesome. Paulo, do you want to start? It's on you.
Yeah, I think that the first question is yours here.
Oh, it's mine. Yeah, actually, yeah, it's mine. Marty, I'm sure that you have been doing several Q&As lately around the world, but we want to start it a little different so we get to really meet you. So are you ready for a few personal questions?
Sure, go ahead.
That's great. You've been like living and breathing product management 24/7, like you said, since the university. Do you think you will eventually get tired of talking about this and teaching this subject?
I didn't know. I mean, at this point, I've honestly been doing it almost 40 years, and I'm still not tired of it. So I'm not so worried about getting tired of it. I feel like the more, obviously there's advantages to just starting in an industry, and I really had a lot of fun early years. But I think there's also some advantages to experience. And I've learned a lot more over the years. And I feel like the more you learn, the more you can put the pieces of the puzzle together the things make sense more. I wish I understood what I know now when I first started. So, no, I think there's some real advantages. There's some obviously disadvantages to getting older, but there's some real advantages too. You really can spend your time working on the problems that you really want to work on with the teams and the companies you really want to work with. So, I'm really lucky, and I've been very lucky that the work continued through the pandemic. I do miss, I miss traveling to, I think we were in Floripa last time together. I miss going to places like that and meeting the local teams, but I've been doing more of that actually than ever. It's just been all on video calls. So in a way, I've seen more people in the last 9 months than I have ever.
That's awesome. Paulo, do you have a question too, right?
Yeah, we are on the personal season. So in addition to teaching and writing about products, are you still doing any hands-on job like product side project, or do you conduct any discovery? If you do so, how do you feel about it? But do you do something like that?
Well, my main job is actually advising startups and growth. So I'm like a coach to them. And that's, you are literally talking with the product, or I get to talk with the product teams almost every day. So I feel very close to the teams, and I get to work with a lot of different teams from many different companies. And I also do a little bit of teaching, which I like because that gives me a chance to meet 50 people at a time. So that's from, 40 different companies. I like that. And then I also write. I've been writing a lot, and that's been something I've focused on for about the last 10 years, is to share more of, what you've learned over the years.
Oh, that's great. So you don't wake up with some idea or some problem that you imagine, oh my God, I think I will create some product just like that, or
complete a few interviews.
Don't have any time to do this.
Yeah, I mean, this is you can't help it. Obviously, if you're a product person, you see product ideas everywhere, product opportunities, and sometimes I will go to LinkedIn and say, who do I know at that company? And I'll say, you should do this. I just did that yesterday with Shopify. It's a great company, and and other times you just you'll send an email to somebody you don't know and just say, maybe you should think about this. But I haven't wanted to stop and do that again myself, just because I like working with lots of companies.
That's awesome. You said, of course, there are a lot of advantages on starting with the industry, right? Did you ever imagine or plan to become such a word reference in product for everyone?
No, honestly, no. I mean, what I really liked doing was leading product organizations. And honestly, I realize a lot of people associate me with product management, but in truth, what I care about are product teams. And as you know, that's mostly engineers, and it's usually a designer and a product manager. But it's also true that I think there's a lot of people that talk about engineering, really smart people, in my opinion, great things to say about engineering. And there's also very good thought leaders, I think, on design, but there's not many on product. And so I find myself talking more about that role, because in most of the time, that's the weak link.
That's awesome. Paulo?
Yeah, we was wondering here that who are your product design or engineering strategic leadership reference today, currently?
Do you mean who? Sorry, the question is, who are the influential people in these spaces?
Yeah.
There's many of them. I don't know really where to start. On the engineering side, there's, as far as publishing. In fact, I'm reading another book by him right now and loving it. Jez Humble wrote the book Accelerate. Very, very good guy. Of course, on the design front, there's actually quite a few good thought leaders there. Christina Wadke is somebody who's at this point a pretty good friend, and there's actually a number of design agencies where the partners are great thinkers, and there's books on this. So that's a great area. And then, of course, in product, there's product is a tricky one because there's more voices than any time before. But I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of people in product that don't know what they're talking about. and it really confuses so many people. But there are some very good people that I try to point people to, like Teresa Torres. Her writing is fantastic. You mentioned Melissa Perry. She knows what she's talking about. Holly Hester Riley at Product Science. She's very good, knows what she's talking about. Petra Willi in Germany. These people are really good thinkers in product. I just wish that the people who were new to product would only listen to them. And unfortunately, because they get so confused because there's so much ridiculousness out there.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I feel the same. Thanks for clarifying. It's in such a way that I can only agree. And what do you do when you're not working? Do you have any hobbies? Do you like any hobbies at all?
Oh yeah, well, I definitely, and I mean, motorcycles are probably my favorite thing.
Wow.
And I have two, and I ride them a lot, so I love those. And anything with two wheels, generally, I like. So.
But like Harley Davidson, or just like Yamaha, Honda, or which one?
Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson, right?
not me, but I do. I like all motorcycles, but my motorcycles are BMW actually. So.
Oh, great. Paulo, you have one last personal question, right?
Yeah, the last question on this personal season is, what's the coolest place, country, or city that you ever been to?
My partners and I were talking about this because we all miss the traveling. We miss going and visiting teams all over. Yes. And it's one of those things, I wouldn't have said this a year ago, but when you can't visit cities that you love, you really start to realize how much you appreciate them. And for me, my answer was London. I really miss London, and I can't wait to get back to London.
Awesome. So great warm up, Paulo. The next question is yours, right? And we also would want to prioritize a few questions from the audience. But if you can ask about the book, I think it would be great.
Yeah. Okay. So we are getting another season of questions right now. Your new book, Empowered, with Chris Jones. We know that you are writing another book, and I already got mine in pre-sale. And your first book became huge in the community. So why did you decide to write another book, and what was the trigger to this new book? What's your insight to this new book that you are writing right now?
Well, what happened was, it sounds like the first book was called Inspired. And Inspired was aimed at product teams and product managers in particular, to help them figure out how the best companies solve hard problems. And that's still my favorite topic. But what happened was, when Inspired spread, I was surprised, but it spread all over the world. And I started hearing from many, many companies where the people loved this, what was talked about. They loved working like Amazon works, or Netflix works, or Google works. They loved that. But what they were telling me was, very often their managers were not allowing them to work that way. So they were literally being told, no, we need you to just build this. And so what I realized was it wasn't just the best practices of the product teams that we needed to share, but it was the best practices of the leaders that we needed to share. Somebody else likes motorcycles, I heard. Yeah, so,
yeah, sorry about that.
You might want to mute, Farina. Yeah. Okay.
I was muting, but I forgot this time. Sorry.
All right. But anyway, I realized that the real problems were leaders, and so I started. I decided we needed a book that shared the best practices of the leaders, because those were really the problem in most companies. Unless the leaders do what they need to do, the teams have no chance of doing what they need to do. So I started work on that about 2 years ago, and the pandemic actually helped. It gave me more time to write. So the book is actually being released about 4 months earlier than it was scheduled to, because I had so much more time to write. But
let me ask something. And you have different approach. This book is directed to product managers who has I don't know what to call these leaders, these poor leaders. Let me use this. Or this book is directed to leaders of the company.
Okay, well, let me be clear. So when I say product leaders, that's the managers of product management, the managers of product design, the managers of engineering, and the senior leaders of the company. That's what we mean. That's what we mean. Those are the people that really need to change. So that's who I mean by that. Most managers are also leaders, but as you know, they're not all leaders. And some leaders are not a manager. But for the most part, when we say product leaders, it's the managers of product management, product design, and engineering.
Great. I have a question from the audience, which we'll start pulling questions from the audience now. Let me put it on screen. From Sergio Passos, from Take Bleep, the company. Yeah. What's the best way of communicating product vision and strategy for the whole company and not just for the product teams?
Okay, well, the first thing is to make sure we're all on the same page about what is product vision and what is product strategy. Those are actually major topics of the new book. The book talks really about coaching, staffing, product vision, product strategy, team topology. That's how do you decide what product teams make up your organization. And then how you assign those the objectives to teams. How do you give them work? Those are the major topics of the book. And so product vision is our common North Star. It's what we're trying to do over the next 3 to 5 years. And maybe what we can do too is, like, I've written articles on this question, and probably many of the questions, I can send you links to those articles. But a very common question is, how do you communicate? How do you do a good job communicating a product vision? And today, my favorite way of doing that is with a video of a prototype. So you create a prototype of your vision, you show off that video, that prototype in a video, and you share that across your company. And some companies share it outside of their company as well. Product strategy is similar, but you don't communicate a product strategy with a video, because a product strategy is really an analysis of data insights, and product strategy is a reasoning. You're explaining the argument about why you want to focus on these areas. And we share that really. We can share it in a written narrative, or we can share it in a company all-hands meeting. But one way or another, it is critical to share the product strategy.
Great. Thanks for that. We have another question. Let me put it on screen. How would you design? This one, I think it depends on a lot of things, but let's try to help. How would you design a lean squad considering data analysts or data scientists, UX designer, PM, tech, and what would you imagine that would be their relationship on a daily basis?
Well, the term lean squad is not really a thing, but a product team is a thing. And so this is describing really, what's a product team? And a product team typically, and there are many, the typical case is about 90% of the time. There's one product manager, one product designer, that's the UX person, and then somewhere between 2 and 10 engineers. That's the core. Now, they may have a data analyst on the team, but usually they have one data analyst that supports 2 or 3 or more teams. So they're not necessarily embedded on the team. If they're doing a data product especially, they may have a data scientist on the team. They may also have a user researcher assigned to the team. They may have a product marketing person helping the team. They could have a delivery manager helping the team. So there are a lot of supporting roles. But the product manager, the product designer, and the engineers are the core roles. Those are the ones that are full-time on that product team. Also known as in Spotify term, that would be a squad.
This is great. We have another one. I was trying to translate to put it on screen, but it will take me a while. But I'll try on freestyle. How do we calm down or tranquilize our investors without a roadmap? And how do we tranquilize the rest of the company who's also suffering without a clear direction for the product?
Well, they should have a clear direction from product, or they're going to be upset. Just realize that a roadmap is just some way you may or may not solve the problems those investors need us to solve. So the way we normally engage with investors is to engage directly with the investors. Like, what are the things that they are worried about? It may be things like growth rates, churn rates, revenue, marketing costs, any of these things. And we say, look, that's what we are going to work on. And every time we talk, we will show you our progress on that. And you're welcome to see our prototypes. You're welcome to see our progress. But what matters is not whether we ship a feature. What matters is whether that feature worked. So when we talk to investors or stakeholders or any other key player, we want to talk about real results. And that really gets to the heart of the difference between a great product team and most. Most product teams don't have any say over how the problems are solved. They're given a roadmap and told, build it. And in that case, they can't really be held accountable for whether or not that works. If that feature doesn't work, you can't blame the team. It's not the team's fault. On the other hand, if you've got a real product team, you can say, look, your job is to improve our churn rate. And let's see what you do every quarter. We will revisit how you're doing, but it's results. It's much harder to be a real product team.
Yeah, sure. Let me do another one here from the public. I think that's one starter question, but what's the role of a group product manager or a senior product manager? What are the main differences between the leadership role and the product manager role?
Okay, well, that's a good one. And coincidentally, just a few minutes ago, I shared a job description for a product manager. Just literally a few minutes ago. So it's on Twitter, it's on LinkedIn, and if you're signed up for the newsletter, you will have it waiting in your inbox. And that describes a product manager. A senior product manager is almost the same. The only difference is we have higher expectations for how good the person is at each of those skills. So senior product manager is very much the same as a product manager, just a little more experience, normally a year or two more experience. A group product manager gets a little different, and I love that role too. It's one of my favorite roles in a product organization. A group product manager is a senior product manager. They have their own product team, and they are the product manager. And just because I think in Brazil, I found some people don't understand this, but the product manager needs to be the product owner. So when I say product manager, that is the title, but the role they play on the Agile team is the product owner role. But if you have a product manager and a product owner that are different people, that's a whole different problem, and it's a big problem. So normally we say product manager is your title. You don't go around saying, I'm a product owner. You say, I'm a product manager, which means I cover the product owner responsibilities for my team, my squad. But what else was I going to say about that?
The group product manager.
Yeah, the group product manager is a senior product manager, but they are also a beginning people manager. So they have 1 or 2, sometimes 3 product managers that also report to them, but really never more than 3. So a very small number of people that they are coaching and responsible for in a people management sense. So that is a great role for somebody who isn't sure if they want to stay as an individual contributor product manager and go all the way up to like a principal product manager, or if they want to become a leader. So to move into a director or a VP or one day chief product officer.
Great.
That's great. I have a question actually about training and about bringing new product managers to the community, right? Today, we have a lot of difficulties in hiring and training product managers. And we know that in the long term, of course, the best thing we can do is to invest in training people and strengthening the community, right? However, is there anything we can do to have short-term results on that? I mean, how can we have positive short-term outcomes on closing this gap between what the companies need and the product managers we have available?
No, I think that's actually the right question. That's the important question, because it is the job of those leaders, especially the manager of the product managers. It is that person's job, number one, to make sure that every single product manager is competent, is able to do their job. In fact, I tell those leaders that you're only as good as your weakest product manager. So this is the number one responsibility, is to make sure you have good product people. Remember, a squad or a product team is only as good as that product manager. And if you have a weak product manager, you're wasting those engineers, you're wasting those designers. So it's essential. So how do you shorten that cycle? The number one thing you can do is make sure that your leaders, your director of product management or your manager of product management, knows what good is. You have to make sure they know what good is, so because their number one responsibility is to teach and coach their people to become better. If they have never worked in a good product company and have never seen it done well, then it's critical that they get some help themselves. There are several product coaches out there. In fact, one of them, I think, Joka Torres is one. I recommend him all the time. He's very good at coaching people to become better. And that's what you can do to help fill that in. You can also shorten the time with an onboarding program. And I have, in fact, the new book has a chapter on how to set up a good onboarding program for your product managers and designers and engineers to get them up to speed faster.
Awesome. So we start by leaders, right? And closing the gap, of course. And as I said, we do have leaders that are it's our first generation of product leaders in Brazil, so it's been really hard to close the gap between among those leaders too, right? And I'm including myself. It's my first. I'm the first generation too, right?
I know it's very. I mean, like Joka literally worked at literally the first generation, right? At LocoWeb was one of the first, and I was very impressed by him 20 years ago, and now he has helped many others become better. That's really what I've seen all over the world. There's an early first generation, and then those people go on and help others and help others. Now, Brazil has been doing tech products now for 20 years, so we should see, we should have a good network of product leaders out there. It is tricky because in different countries, and including in the US, not all companies do what we're talking about. So, for example, in a lot of parts of the world, like US and like Brazil, a lot of the big employers are banks. But banks don't really know, they don't mean the same thing when we talk about products. So there's a lot of people that are getting experience, but not the kind of experience that we need.
That's awesome. We'll move on for the next question from the audience. Let's see. Regarding B2B products, in your opinion, how's the best way to deal with special requests from commercial teams, sales teams, as they usually come with an associated monetary value that a new contract would bring?
Well, and by the way, this is a major topic addressed in Inspired, the original book. So I would definitely encourage whoever asked that question to read that book. The biggest chapter, in fact, is on that topic. This is how sales-driven companies work. This is not how a good product company works. So, and the best answer to that, I believe, is to use one of the techniques that is designed to counter that. The one I recommend and talk a lot about in the book is customer discovery program. But the bottom line is you need to show customers, you need to make sure that what you build will not just work for them, but it'll work for many companies. And doing specials is one of the quickest ways we know to destroy a product.
Yes, as known as top-down requests. I think it's another name for a special request. You can call it top-down requests.
One question from the audience. It doesn't come from one ask, but it's a really, really good question. I would love to hear your thoughts about it. Let me show it on screen. Hi, Marty, from Christina Luckner. My question is, as a UX writer, how can I better collaborate with product managers on a daily basis? And she asked for 3 examples of best practice you've seen in companies you worked in.
Okay, well, if I was just talking to Christina one-on-one, I would ask her more about how many product teams are there, how many writers are there. I'm going to assume, because in most companies don't even have UX writers. It's the larger ones, usually e-commerce companies, that have a small group of UX writers, or often called content strategists as well. And in that model, what you want to do is take the philosophy, and user researchers do the same thing, which is to enable the product teams, in particular product managers and the product designer, to do good writing themselves. So that means providing them guidelines. They're literally called style guides that talk about the voice, that talk about what is a good example, what is a bad example. But I'm speaking to Christina here, if Christina is the bottleneck and every word that is going to be on the site has to go through her organization is going to, number one, go way too slow. And number 2, the product managers and designers are going to feel like, man, I can't even decide the simple, words, which are extremely important, which Christina knows, and not all designers and product managers understand. But it's her job to help them understand how important the right words are, and also to understand how to get it mostly right themselves. And then she in the UX world, we often talk about design systems, which are for exactly this purpose, to help the different teams make good design choices themselves. That's really the scalable answer to that.
That was awesome. Thank you, Christina, for your awesome question. Paulo, do you want to take the next one? It's on screen.
Yeah. Okay, let me, it's a little, autonomy is crucial on the PM role in any organization. How to raise awareness and gain engagement from C-level about this?
Okay, just to be clear, because I don't think the word you want is autonomy. Autonomy, honestly, the C-level doesn't even know or care about. Autonomy means how much control do we have as a team over what we need to change. That's really in the details for the executives. The word I think that the person asking the question wanted was empowerment. Empowerment is different. Empowerment means how much control do we have over what solution we come up with? Are we told what to build, or do we get to figure out what to build? That's what empowerment is. Now that is a big deal, and that is what you need support for from the C-level, because that is true. The C-level cares a lot about that. They often the C-level, in fact, sometimes the CEO is the problem. The CEO is the person saying, I want you to build this. That's an example where the CEO does not understand the benefits of empowerment. So again, nothing to do with autonomy. It's all about empowerment there. And we need that CEO to understand that their people will do much better work and be much more motivated if they're empowered.
Do you think, just a following question, do you think, because when you are talking about this, came in my mind the startup scenario, but you think that it's possible to in big companies, big tech companies as well? It's harder, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, most of the best product companies are huge companies. Look at Amazon. They're huge. Look at Netflix. By the way, Netflix founder, Reed Hastings, just published a really good book. Just came out. It's called No Rules Rules. No Rules Rules. And it's basically a book that makes the argument for empowerment. That's the whole idea behind their model, is empowering teams. And it really comes from the top. It came from the leaders of Netflix. And Netflix is a huge company that has continued to innovate and disrupt. And the same, I would argue, is true for Slack, for Etsy, for Airbnb, for any of these great companies, Spotify. No.
Yeah, they're out of focus.
I don't know.
I want to do some discussion right here. I'm not sure if you are comfortable to answer this, Marty, but
yeah.
You saw the social, what is the social dilemma, I think, the documentary on Netflix. Did you saw it?
On Netflix? Marty? No, I didn't see
it. Yeah. Okay, so
yeah.
we
Can I just ask one more question about empowerment, given it's the big question and the big topic on your next book? As a product leader, I must also mentor product managers, act as a mentor for product managers, and help them to find the shortcuts somehow, or at least I believe I should, right? But I also must give them a certain degree of empowerment, of course. Yeah. So sometimes I ask myself, should I tell them that this is a bad idea, or do I wait for them to find it out by themselves? Am I wasting the company's money by not telling? Or am I taking off their power by telling? What criteria can I use to answer these questions?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a couple things I would share with you. First of all, it's good that you're sensitive to this. That's good, because a lot of people are blind to this. But you want to tell people, you want to give them as much freedom to come up with the right solution themselves as possible. But you do need to give them a lot of context. In fact, at Netflix, they like to talk about lead with context, not with control. So instead of just telling your people, do this, just do this, like that's a bad idea, do this. Instead, say, here's the strategy, here's the issues. In fact, in the book, there was a good story that Reed shared as CEO, where he found somebody, one of the managers in the company, doing a really dumb thing. He shared it in the book, but a very dumb thing. And he said, in his old life, he would have just said, you're stupid, you're fired or something like that. But then now he realizes, no, that's the reason that person made the decision he did was because he did not have context. He did not understand the business at the level Reed did. So Reed now asks himself every time he finds that, he says, what piece of context did I not provide to this leader? And that's a really good way to look at it. And I believe that's another article I can share. A big part of coaching is sharing the strategic context. What's the product vision? What's the business strategy? What's the product strategy? What's our objectives? You need to share that so that people can make good choices.
This is great. If you can share with us, we're sending a follow-up email to everyone tomorrow morning with the links and everything we mentioned here, the books. But we have a very good question from Damian Barba in the chat. But I'll take the current subject, to ask one more follow-up question about this topic on context and failure and everything. About giving context, right? Product managers are encouraged to be brave and to embrace failure as a part of the process, but also as a leader, I'm also responsible for finding product managers who are not doing a good job. And that means they are somehow failing, but maybe not failing in a way they should fail, or I don't know, how do I tell? Is there such a thing as a good failure versus a bad failure on product management?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people, a lot of people get confused with that. I mean, the point is, we have to try lots of things in order to come up with a winning solution. And lots of those things are not going to work. The key is, do you use discovery techniques to figure out something doesn't work? Or are you building with your engineers and shipping to your customers to find out something doesn't work? In other words, if you find something doesn't work in discovery, that's not failure, that's just learning. That's normal. If you end up having your engineers build a product and it fails, I'm sorry to tell you, but that's failure. And that's the that's the bad kind of failure. Now, sometimes it's unavoidable, but most of the time it is very avoidable. And that's what and when that happens, we want to know, look, why did you do that? Why didn't you do a prototype and figure that out in 2 weeks instead of 2 months?
Awesome. That's awesome. We have, I think we could talk about this for the whole night, but I'll pull one more question from the audience here. Let's get to Damian's question, which is very good, because it's not really as sales team requests, but as I think it's in a company level. How would you recommend a product manager to act or react when the whole organization starts to lean more towards marketing requests versus tackling harder problems recommended by product?
Well, first I should clarify, the hard problems to tackle are not usually coming from the product teams. They're coming from the leaders of the company. They're coming from the product strategy. Product is not there to just decide what it wants to work on. That's not what empowerment means. Empowerment means, okay, the company leadership gave us this problem to solve. We get to figure out the best way to solve it. So that's where it comes from. So if we get that out of the way, When the person asking the question said, coming from marketing, that could mean literally just the marketing organization asking for a lot of little things, or it could mean, because, many years ago in the 1980s, there wasn't product management. The marketing organization is who told the engineers what to build. And so I don't know if that's what's going on in that person's company. I will say that every product team has a certain amount of what we call keep the lights on work. These are just little things, like for marketing has to run an advertising program, so they need us to put a tracking pixel in. That's not a big deal. We do that every day. That's normal. I hope that's not what the person is talking about, because that is part of your job, but that's usually a minor part of the job.
That's
Great.
It really got me thinking. Thank you for that. Paulo, I'll leave the next question for you, because I need to put my thoughts together.
Okay, take time for you. So the next question from the public is how to deal with the challenge of team interdependence when they are different in priorities.
Well, this is another example of leaders not doing their job, because the job of leaders is to decide the priorities, not every team. You don't want 25 teams all deciding priorities on their own, obviously. So the leaders need to decide that. This is what's meant by alignment. So the leaders need to make sure that product strategy is dispersed, the work out to the teams, and it needs to be aligned. So you can't have 3 teams working on one thing that depends on another team, but that team is not doing what they need to do. So that, where are the leaders here? Where are the managers? Asleep. So we need to wake them up and have them do their job.
How do we do that, actually? As product managers, I'm not leading anyone. How do I wake my boss up? not that my boss needs that. He's an excellent boss, by the way.
Well, one answer is that's why I just spent 2 years writing this new book, because a lot of the managers just don't know what their job really is. And they've never seen it done well. They've never worked in a company that's done it well. So they need help. And most of the time, that's what's going on. They need help. And it, of course, is difficult for the product manager, because they don't necessarily know either. They just know that something's missing. And so they want their manager, they know at some level their manager needs to be doing more. So yeah, we need to help them get better.
Let me ask some question here that we did on a couple of lives ago, Farina. That is, how do you see these new roles? I think that it's some new roles like growth product managers, like verticals that are being created on the last years on product management.
Well, growth product managers have been around, I don't know, at least 15 years. So,
okay, I'm sorry.
In other words, there's no secret that having a product team focused on growth is not unusual, right? That's just like there's often a product team focused on retention or engagement or any business objective. So that's not a new thing. It's an old thing. And in many cases, it's a really good thing. Not all, but in many companies, that's a good use of a team. Yeah, so it's just, all it is a product team focused on a very specific business outcome.
Great. Is there another for you, Farina?
Oh, let me unmute. There's also, I think, one last question from the audience. It's from, I think, I forgot. Sorry about that. Jessica Seixas. Thank you, Jessica. How we can tell good strategy from bad strategy?
Oh, that's a great question. And in fact, let me just mention that is the literal name of one of my favorite books on strategy. It's called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by Richard Rummelt. Yeah, we should share that link too. I have shared articles. That is a major topic of, I feel like I'm just promoting my new book. I don't intend to do that. Most of the content in the book is available for free right now on the website, so you don't have to go buy a book. And in fact, this article talks about product strategy, what makes a good product strategy, why is most product strategies, why are they so bad? The truth is, in my experience in product companies, it's not like they have a bad product strategy. They have no product strategy, just nothing. All they're doing is trying to meet the needs of their stakeholders. That's not a product strategy. That's just reaction. So they're just trying to please as many people as possible. That's not a product strategy. And of course, good companies absolutely have a strong product strategy. And so we can talk about a good, strong product strategy driven by insights and data. And yes, I can share lots of articles that talk about how do you come up with those good product strategies. But the broader issue is that most companies don't have any product strategy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks for that, Marty. This is certainly not a job interview, but it will look like one. Do you have any questions for us or for the Brazilian product community? Anything you would like to know about?
Not really. No. I've been going there for a long time, and I have had a chance to get to know some great people in Brazil at all size companies now, not just startups, but also growth stage companies and large companies. And so I love seeing all the companies now in Brazil doing products for Brazil, and even in many cases now for the world.
Great. I think I skipped the question, not intentionally. I'm sorry. Just let me get back to it. Sorry. From Alexandre De Davi from OLX Brazil. You mentioned a standard Spotify squad team structure involving a product designer. For internal products, those ones that serve the company itself, like internal data products or products to help tech and product teams to deliver, support teams, do they need a product designer working on the squad? And if so, what's their role? What's the overlap between product manager and product designer?
Well, there's not really no overlap. This is one of those questions that comes up a lot. In an ideal world, they would have a product designer. Absolutely. At least if they're creating a user experience. So for example, a dashboard that your customer service employees use every day. If you've seen those at most companies, they're just horrible, right? They're just hacked together, and clearly there was no designer. They were just somebody, usually a developer, just did their best, and it's a mess. So should they have a designer? Yes, but here's the thing. Every company has to prioritize its money. And the first thing is you have to make sure that all of the things that you're paying customers see has a product designer. Absolutely. After that, then I like to use the designers for the internal tools. But we don't always have enough designers now. So we recognize that if we have to choose, then clearly we have to give the designers to our paying customers. So that's what's going on. But in my experience, the best companies, Apple is a good example. They put real excellent product designers on the tools that their own employees get to use.
Great. This is great. Thank you very much. Well, we're running out of time here. If you'd like to give us our final thoughts or conclusion about anything you should say we did not ask, well, it's your time. Totally your time now.
Well, I'll just thank you for inviting me. I hope it was useful. And like I said, I'll happy to send me. We'll put some links together for people so that they can see all these things that we were referencing.
Awesome. Not to put any pressure, but it would really be awesome to have you here with us next year too. Right?
No, I definitely hope we can all travel then, for sure.
Yeah, sure. Don't go anywhere before talking with us.
All right.
Thank you very much, Marty. I'll say a few words in Portuguese now, if you don't mind. Galera, sei que tem várias outras perguntas, foi animal, para mim foi um prazer poder conversar com ele novamente. Obrigado por todo mundo que acompanhou, obrigado por todo mundo que assistiu, realmente, né, foi incrível. Marty, you have a lot of comments of people thanking you too, right here. E é isso, galera, de novo aqui, nosso objetivo sempre foi subir a barra da comunidade. A gente fez esse esforço aí, conversou bastante com o Marty para trazer ele como um meetup gratuito, online, aberto para todo mundo. Tá? A gente vai dar um jeito aqui na questão da legenda, a gente deve tirar o vídeo um pouquinho, para subir uma legendinha depois. Sinceramente é novidade para mim, não sei muito bem como resolver isso. Mas, Paulo, obrigado também pela tua... Cara, se não fosse o Paulo, galera, se não fosse o PH, esse negócio não teria acontecido. Então, brigadão, Paulo, tu tá no mudo aí, mas, de novo, obrigado pela tua colaboração. Tá, e ele é o grande responsável por trás de todos os esquentas que vocês vão ver, tá? Então, na quinta-feira, a gente tem um meetup animal da OLX, conversei com eles, um case super bacana da Gláucia, que vai trazer para vocês um case bem bacana de como eles estão fazendo. A OLX é uma empresa super madura, começaram hoje ali a operar já como todo o grupo ali que comprou todo mundo, né? Comprou o Zap, comprou a galera toda. E na quinta-feira, eles vão trazer um case bacana pra gente. Tá? Eu não vou estar aqui, acho que vai estar o PH e o Marcel só, não vou poder, mas eu vou assistir depois. Beleza, galera? De novo, obrigado. Product Camp vai rolar, é isso aí, 30 de novembro, não vou ficar alongando aqui com vocês. A partir de 30 de novembro, vai lá em productcamp.com.br e compra lá o ingresso se você não comprou ainda. E assina o nosso canal aqui. A gente tem feito um monte de live esse ano. O ano que vem, a gente, se Deus quiser, vai estar todo mundo presencial, mas não é por isso que a gente vai parar com as lives. Então, assina o nosso canal aqui no YouTube, que sempre vai ter novidade. Marty, once again, thank you for everything.
Thank you very much, Marty. We are very honored to have you here with us.
Thank you. Good luck.